You've been there, right? You're totally overwhelmed, your brain is swimming in fog, and you think, okay, I just need to go crush a really hard workout. We all do it, but what if that intense workout, the very thing you think is your magic fix, is actually making the problem worse?
So is your workout clearing your head, or is it just clouding it? We're going to dive into this because, it's a question that really gets to the heart of how a lot of us deal with stress. We push our bodies, hoping to fix our minds, but is that always the right move?
I mean, the whole idea seems to make perfect sense, doesn't it? You're stressed, you can't focus, so what do? You go for a hard run, you lift some heavy weights, you just sweat it all out. The story goes that you come back feeling exhausted, sure, but mentally sharper. That's the narrative anyway.
But does that idea really hold up under a microscope? Well, let's take a look at a 2025 study from the journal Scientific Reports. A team of researchers decided to put this exact idea to the test. They wanted to know if exercise really is the silver bullet for stress-induced brain fog. And what they found, well, let's just say it was not what anyone was expecting.
All right, so how in the world do you even begin to measure something like this? Well, the researchers set up a pretty clever study to try and untangle this really complex web between our stress levels, our workout habits, and just our general day-to-day mental sharpness.
Okay, so here's a quick snapshot of the study. They got 290 university students, and yeah, if any group knows about stress, it's probably them. And using some standard questionnaires, they measured 4 key things: how stressed people felt, the intensity of their aerobic exercise, how much they were sleeping, and this thing they call cognitive failures.
So cognitive failures, what does that even mean? It's basically the scientific term for those brain fog moments. It's the forgetfulness, the inattentiveness, making those silly little errors in daily life. It's really just a way of counting how often your brain just isn't firing on all cylinders.
And to make it super concrete, one of the actual questions on the questionnaire was, quote, do you find yourself dropping things? Simple as that. Other questions were about, forgetting people's names or losing your train of thought mid-sentence. It's all those little frustrating moments that really add up when you're feeling stressed out.
Okay, so this is the key part. The researchers went into this with a really clear expectation, their hypothesis. They basically predicted that for people who were super stressed, the ones who exercised more would have fewer of these cognitive slip-ups. Exercise was supposed to be the protective shield, right?
But then, a surprising result. When they actually crunched the numbers, that simple, intuitive story just completely fell apart. The data told a totally different and honestly a much more fascinating story.
Okay, finding number 1. And this was the first real shocker. On its own, stress was not a significant predictor of cognitive failures. That's right, just being stressed by itself wasn't enough to explain the brain fog for the group as a whole. That was the first clue that something else was going on here.
But the story changed completely when the researchers factored in exercise intensity. They split everyone into 3 groups: low, moderate, and high-intensity workouts. And this is where everything we thought we knew started to unravel.
So first up, let's look at the low-intensity exercise group. We're talking about things like gentle walks, maybe some yoga. For them, the link between stress and brain fog was basically zero. It was non-existent. Being stressed just didn't seem to make them more forgetful. So far, so good. This is kind of what we'd expect.
But now, look what happens with the moderate exercisers. All of a sudden, a significant link pops up. For this group, higher stress did correlate with more of those cognitive failures. The plot is definitely starting to thicken.
And here it is. This is the big twist. Check out the high-intensity group. For them, the connection between stress and cognitive failures wasn't just significant, it was the strongest and most significant of all 3 groups. Let that sink in. The people exercising the hardest showed the tightest link between being stressed out and having brain fog.
So let's just put that all together. For the low-intensity group, the link between stress and brain fog was not significant. For the moderate group, it was significant, and for the high-intensity group, it was the strongest and most significant. This is the complete opposite of what the researchers and frankly what most of us would have guessed.
Now, just a key side note here. Before we try to explain this whole twist, the study had one other really clear finding. And it's that, across the board, more sleep was significantly linked to fewer cognitive failures. Sleep was the hero of the story. It's a simple but super powerful reminder of just how critical sleep is for our brains.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question. Why?
Why would more intense exercise, our go-to stress buster, actually seem to make things worse when we're stressed? Why would it amplify the brain fog instead of getting rid of it?
Well, the researchers threw out a few potential explanations. First, you got to remember that intense exercise is itself a physical stressor. It causes a short-term spike in cortisol, the stress hormone. So, if your stress bucket is already full from work or life, that super hard workout might just be the thing that makes it overflow. It could also be just plain mental fatigue or even overtraining. The bottom line is the relationship is just way more complex than exercise is good for stress.
All right, so let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What does all this actually mean for you?
First, some important caveats. We have to be careful here. This study shows a link, a correlation, but it can't prove that intense exercise causes the brain fog. Plus, the data was all self-reported from university students, so we can't just apply this to everybody. Think of it as a really fascinating clue, not the final word.
But the main takeaway here is still really powerful. The point is not that exercise is bad. Absolutely not. It's that the type and intensity of your workout matter a ton, especially when you're already stressed out. When you're feeling mentally fried, maybe the answer isn't to go destroy yourself at the gym. A nice gentle walk, a swim, that might be exactly what your brain needs, way more than a punishing workout that just overflows that stress bucket. This isn't about giving up on exercise. It's about getting smarter with it. It's about listening not just to your body, but to your mind too. So the next time that brain fog starts to creep in, maybe the question isn't, how hard can I push myself? Maybe the real question is, what does my brain actually need right now? A battle or a little bit of peace? The answer just might change everything.